is Ryan Mears. I'm your Marion County prosecutor, and we appreciate everybody coming out here today as we have an update on a shooting that occurred earlier this week. First of all, I think it's appropriate to recognize the level of cooperation that we received from our friends in the Dutch Armed Services, as well as the families that were involved in this incident. Chief Adams and I had an opportunity to meet with the family yesterday, and I cannot say enough good things, positive things about the family, and just the level of graciousness that they conducted themselves with. And we appreciate their willingness to meet with us and share their thoughts, as well as tell us a little bit about their loved ones who they have lost. And so I did want to give a special thanks to them, as well as everybody in the Dutch Armed Services, for making this process as smooth as possible. I also want to recognize the efforts of Detective Wright, who is the lead detective on this case from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. I wanted to recognize Amy Jacobson, who was the deputy prosecutor who was assigned to assist in this investigation, has been working on this case nonstop. And I think it's also appropriate to recognize the FBI and the United States Marshal Services, who provided extraordinary resources and information to put us in a position to quickly gather information and file this case. As always, we would not be in a position to file a case such as this without the cooperation of the community. So many people who were out downtown came forward with information, which we are grateful for. We're also grateful for the downtown business community for their willingness to share video, which put us in a position to act very quickly and be in a position to file charges here today. So it truly was a team effort from everybody involved, from law enforcement to the military to our community, including our downtown business community. So thank you to everybody involved. Today, the Marion County Prosecutor's Office has filed charges against Shamar Duncan, and we are alleging 1 count of murder, 2 counts of attempt murder, and 1 count of disorderly conduct. As it relates to the murder charge, the maximum penalty is 65 years. The minimum penalty is 45 years. For the attempt murder charges, the range of penalty is 20 to 40 years. It's important to recognize that because we are alleging multiple victims were involved, that all 3 of those counts can be run consecutive to one another or one after another. I would point out that because of the person who's involved in this criminal history, we are not in a position to file any weapon charges in this particular case, so there is no gun charge associated with the filing here today. The incident that occurred was unfortunately yet another example of a simple confrontation turning violent. As the facts that are outlined in the probable cause affidavit indicate, this was a simple confrontation that took place on the street. There was an altercation. That altercation turned physical. The initial altercation did not involve any weapons, but unfortunately after that initial confrontation concluded, an individual made the choice to retrieve a weapon, and we are standing here with 1 person who has lost their life and 2 people who have been seriously injured as a result of those actions. We are in a position to file these charges because of the work that our friends at the police department did. And so with that, I will turn it over to Kendall to walk us through the investigation.
Thank you, Prosecutor Mears. I would like to express my candid disgust at the senseless and tragic events that has led us here today. The life taken due to senseless gun violence of a hero is disgraceful and cowardly. To those injured, you are courageous, and you can continue to be in our thoughts. Today's announcement sends a clear message that if you irresponsibly discharge a firearm and injure or kill someone, it's not acceptable. The arrest and subsequent filing of formal charges would not have been possible without the collaboration, dedication, and motivation of IMPD, the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, and our federal law enforcement partners. Lead Homicide Detective Wright and assisting detectives, crime lab technicians, investigators with IMPD's Violent Crimes Unit, IMPD's Incident Analysis Center, FBI, United States Marshal Service, Indiana National Guard, Marion County Coroner's Office, and Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Amy Jacobson, who for 3 consecutive days, often without proper amounts of sleep, worked seamlessly to coordinate and collaborate available evidence that led to the suspect's apprehension. I would also like to recognize Homicide Sergeant Mike Duke and Homicide Detective Andrew McCalebs, who not only provided investigative support toward this case, but for their unwavering attentiveness to the families, often during their days off and before coming in for their late shift assignment. Thank you. To the servicemen who courageously rendered aid to their injured comrades, thank you. Lastly, to the community who came forward with everything from video evidence to eyewitness accounts to helping families with whatever they needed, we as a law enforcement community cannot say thank you enough. We stand today mourning the tragic loss of a life due to gun violence, but we also stand here boldly saying there is hope when we turn to each other for strength. Today is the beginning of a long road, and together, IMPD and the Marion County Prosecutor's Office will not stop working to strengthen this case. So anyone that has additional information about this case is encouraged to call IMPD at 317-327-3475. Thank you.
Just one point before we take questions too. This is obviously the first day of the case for the prosecutor's office with the formal filing of the charges. I hope no one interprets this as the end of the investigation or that other additional charges against other individuals will not be filed in the future. This is just the first step in the process, and certainly we are continuing to evaluate everybody's conduct involved. All of us were focused to make sure we were in a position to file charges against the individual that we are alleging is the shooter, but that certainly doesn't mean that we're done, and additional trial charges against additional individuals will not be filed in the future. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
You got a gun?
No.
How did you put this together? How did you fall on Mr. Duncan?
Yeah, so it's a combination of detective work, combination of technology, and eyewitness accounts that kind of led us towards the individuals involved.
Can you explain that? What pieces did you have to put together? How
Well,
did you build that since 3:30 Saturday morning that eventually tracked you to Mr.
Well,
Duncan on Tuesday night?
Yeah, so obviously, public safety cameras, license plate readers, innovative detective work, consultation with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, eyewitness accounts, eyewitness statements, all of that led to help us put this case together. There was no one particular source that was more important than the other, but all of those pieces led us to identify the suspects.
Was there anything on social media?
I mean, that's a part of what we always look at in any investigation. But the four areas that I mentioned were the primary drivers towards what led us to the alleged suspect.
For 4 days, and how'd you find him?
Well, again, using technology, using covert technology. Obviously, Russ, we don't want to reveal everything that we use as these investigations unfold, because obviously there are other shootings that are out there that we need to use these technologies. But I'll say technology and detectives that work 24 hours for 3 days a week.
Was there anybody else helping him while he was on the run?
Not to my knowledge. There were individuals that we interviewed, that we talked to, that were associated with him, but in terms of helping him, I have no information towards that.
Do you have a condition update on the two soldiers that were injured in the shooting?
So one serviceman has already gone back, and then the other serviceman is scheduled to go back today. So they're in good condition, expected to make a full recovery.
And you made that to the Netherlands?
Yes, correct, back home.
All right, can you explain to us what your witnesses or what your detectives saw on the surveillance cameras about the initial dispute, how that played out, and then how the next 2 to 3 minutes unfolded northbound on North Meridian Street?
Well, as alleged in the probable cause affidavit that you already have, I mean, there was a fight that occurred outside. Then the alleged suspects go back to their vehicle, and we believe a gun is retrieved, and then the shots are fired there in front of the hotel. So that's what's alleged in the probable cause that you have, and that's what we're saying today.
Can you tell how many people were involved in that fight?
There were anywhere from 9 to 10, plus the alleged individuals that are considered the suspects.
9 to 10 people fighting those 3 soldiers?
No. Yeah, 9 to 10 individuals total, including the servicemen. Now, obviously, that number can change because eyewitness, the cameras, all of that.
And what tripped off the dispute?
It was, you know, we don't exactly know what tipped off the pursuit. Amy, I don't think we know that exactly, do we?
Verbal comments.
Yeah, it was just words exchanged between the group that led to, you know, the fight and then the subsequent shooting.
Prosecutor Mears, the guy that was driving the truck, no charges on him? How come?
Well, I think that goes back to my earlier statement. I mean, we're evaluating everybody's conduct, and what did people know and when did they know it, and what was their conduct after the fact. And so we're going through everything right now. The one good thing about this case is we've been provided a ton of evidence. We're going through all of that evidence. And so my earlier comments, I think, speak to people who were potentially involved in this process before, during, and after these events occurred.
And maybe I missed this, why are there no gun charges?
The individual right here, you know, there's he did not have a handgun license, but currently there's no requirement that he have a handgun license, and his criminal history would not otherwise prohibit this individual from having a firearm, so he was free to possess that firearm downtown.
Do any of you have a comment on the international attention this has brought to gun violence in our city?
Well, I think it's, you know, it's tragic anytime you lose somebody. And in particular, you have someone who came to Indianapolis to experience the best of what our city, our state, and our country has to offer. This was a joint training exercise where people were supposed to learn from each other. And someone ends up being, two people end up being seriously injured, and one person lost their life. And certainly, we've had conversations with people who are from other countries who have been involved in this, and certainly they have a difficult time understanding the state of our gun laws and why people are allowed to so freely carry weapons in public. And I think that's something that is even reflected in the probable cause affidavit with some of the comments made by the people who were involved in this incident. And so it's definitely been a process to have those conversations with people who have a very different perspective and live in countries where the laws more tightly control the use and possession of firearms.
Did the international or national implications of this case bring any more resources or pressure to the table to bring this to a resolution?
I don't think so. I mean, anytime you're dealing with a case, you know, you're trying to follow up on information, you're trying to be in a position to track individuals down. You know, as Deputy Chief mentioned, you know, in a lot of these cases, we're using very similar technology to try to piece these situations and incidents together. I think in this particular case, you have an incident that occurred in a very public place in front of a lot of people. And so because of that, we were presented with quite a bit of information, and we had quite a bit of cooperation from the public, which allowed us to build this case so quickly.
Are you concerned about the safety of downtown, yet another incident?
No. I mean, I think what my concern is just the fact that the number of cases that we had this weekend that were directly related to simple confrontations. We had someone who was shot in a road rage incident. We had someone who was shot over a parking spot. We had someone who was shot over loud music being played. All of that occurred this weekend all over our city. It's just this continued issue of confrontations turning into violence. And that's my concern. I don't know if you have anything.
No, I agree, ditto.
You gonna have more patrols downtown in the future?
You know, I want to say this, that we are a major city that is experiencing things of other similar sized cities and major cities across the country. But our downtown is one of the safest places that you can go anywhere in this city and anywhere in the country. I'd take my family down there. I'm sure the people behind me would do the same. We have more officers on Thursday through Sunday night downtown in a small geographic area than anywhere else probably in the city because of the amount of people that come downtown each and every weekend. The investments, over $9 million invested in enhancing our technology, as you heard from Deputy Chief Adams, that has played a part in getting this case solved so quickly and so many others, and has prevented violent crimes not only in downtown but other parts of our city are paying dividends. So there are no plans to increase any kind of security plans downtown because we think our security plans are sufficient. This happened close to 4 a.m. Most of the bars are closed and most of the things had already cleared out. And our teams had already started to disperse and go take care of other issues in other areas of the city. So downtown is safe. We will continue to monitor and make adjustments and hold businesses and people accountable for their behavior, not only downtown, but across the city. And I want to echo something that Prosecutor Mears said, is that the reason why this case was closed so quickly is a combination of things. Cooperative community and cooperative witnesses who come forward with information. Technology and just great police work that our detectives give every single homicide in this city. But the two key factors in this one were community cooperation and technology.
PC says the guys that bumped into the soldiers were looking for a fight. What is that? Can you speak to anything on that? Either Prosecutor Mears or-
Yeah, I mean, it speaks in the probable cause, kind of what led to it and what we, again, this is a long road and there's still evidence we have to uncover. So some of those theories we're still looking into.
Have you had any contact or discussions with Dutch investigators, and if so, what have those been about?
I mean, Deputy Chief Adams and I have been in constant conversation with varying levels of government, both in the United States as well as with the Dutch government. We met with them. I know Deputy Chief Adams has met with them multiple times. I personally met with them yesterday. And so we have very open and honest lines of communication with everybody involved.
What have those conversations been about?
Yeah, so there are two investigators here, the equivalent of like the FBI that are here actually on the ground. I'm sorry, three. And so those, we've shared information with them. One of them has gone to the autopsy. So we've been in constant contact with them in terms of what they need, what information they may need after this. Prosecutor Mears met with them yesterday to provide contact information as they have their own independent investigation that is occurring for the Netherlands. So that will continue to go forward even after today.
For people who don't understand how complex police work is, how do you combat the perception that in this town over the last handful of years, there are literally hundreds of local people who have lost loved ones, and those cases have not been solved, but it appears when a visitor from out of town, and the White House and the Pentagon and the State Department all weigh in, this one, thank goodness, gets solved within 5 days, but there are literally hundreds of others in this town that can't be solved or aren't being solved. How do you combat that perception?
Well, I mean, we've filed a number of cases over the last 3 weeks. I mean, there's a number of cases. You know, Amy Jacobson is on call, and she's personally filed multiple murder cases in the last 30 days. And it's a reflection, I think, of the prosecutor's office and IMPD's commitment to try to solve these cases. You know, in this case, we got good information and good leads to follow up on. If we get that same information in other cases, I can assure you, Deputy Prosecutor Jacobson is going to be available. I can assure you that IMPD is going to devote those same resources to make sure we can solve those cases. But oftentimes, it's what information is presented to us and when. And so if we get that information, you're going to see the exact same effort from the exact same people.
Prosecutor Mears, you said you met with the family of the deceased. Is there anything that they said or they had on their minds that has stuck with you?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just, you know, they had to fly halfway around the world because an unimaginable tragedy occurred. And they were just the level of grace and dignity that they conducted themselves with, and their willingness to talk with us about the case, to share a little bit about what they lost. You're just constantly reminded about the strength of people, but also just how incredible that family is. And, you know, I think, I don't want to speak for Deputy Chief Adams here, but I mean, you could not help but walk out of that meeting feeling uplifted, knowing that, you know, you're fighting for some pretty good people who have gone through a really difficult time.
Yeah, I echo Prosecutor Mears. I've spent and met with them at least on 3 different occasions, and I can tell you their strength. Obviously, they have a lot of questions, and that's why we've met with them so often to ensure that we're answering all of their questions. But their strength and their resolve and their appreciation for the work that both IMPD and Marion County Prosecutor's Office and federal law enforcement officials has done, you know, they couldn't be more thankful given the circumstances.
What questions
just about the process. I think, you know, early on, it was kind of, you know, would we make an arrest? What kind of efforts were being made to make that arrest? And then, obviously, when we announced the arrest to them, then it was more questions about the process. What happens next? Will we be able to come back? And those kind of things.
We assume Mr. Duncan had no comment when he was taken into custody, or did he talk?
We'll stand by the probable cause affidavit, which details that.
There were some details in court records that were released yesterday that said that the truck made a U-turn in front of the old Indy Store building, or by the Indy Store building, came back in front of the Hampton Inn, stopped, put their flashers on, then people heard gunshots. Have you talked to the driver of that car, or how come that person hasn't been charged?
Again, I mean, I think it goes back to our earlier answer. You know, this is certainly an ongoing investigation, and nothing should be interpreted by, you know, filing charge against one person means that that excluded everybody else. That's certainly not what we're saying here today. I have great confidence in the people we get to work with, that they're going to be able to provide us with all the necessary information to make a well-informed decision as to what needs to occur in the future.
Chief Bailey spoke earlier about holding downtown businesses accountable. Is there any frustration on IMPD's behalf about the way some downtown businesses are either conducting business, especially at that hour of the morning, considering the clientele that they're serving, or with the city's inability to enact local ordinances to curb that type of behavior?
The quick answer to that is absolutely yes. I mean, we spend an enormous amount of money to ultimately babysit adults in just a 2-block area of downtown Indianapolis. And it's frustrating to us that we have very little local authority and local controls over especially those establishments that serve alcohol. We have numerous occasions, as we saw with one of the recent bars that was closed down, of over-serving, letting people in that are already highly intoxicated, drug dealing going on inside the establishments. It's repeated itself over and over and over again. So yeah, we're absolutely frustrated, and the taxpayers should be frustrated with the amount of money that it costs to secure just a 2-block area in downtown Indianapolis on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night.
Is there any plans to crack down on more?
We have been doing that. We've been doing it. This is there's no new plans, right? This is an ongoing process. That's what just happened, one bar down there. And it's been going on for years. That lies the problem with the process. Our local alcohol board takes licenses away on a routine basis just to watch the state board give it back to them, that's a problem. Most major cities have the ability to regulate some things in their city. We don't have that ability. It's not given to us by the state of Indiana, so we have to work within that framework and those laws. And it's frustrating to us. It's frustrating to people that live down there, for the good people who visit, our visitors, and the people that own businesses and do the right thing and who are legitimate and friendly neighbors.
Is there something that you wish the ATC or the local board would do to?
Yeah, I want them to evaluate the facts more quickly. I want them to make decisions on a quicker basis. I want them to rely on the local board and listen to visitors and business owners and residents of downtown that plead and provide testimony to the issues that are being faced by these few establishments, very few, that cause the problems. And I would love for the local legislature here, our city county council, to have more authority over regulating businesses in Marion County.
So do you believe that the victims or the suspect were intoxicated in this incident, or that alcohol fueled this incident?
We don't, you know, certainly we don't have any evidence right now, given the night and where people were coming from. It's certainly a possibility. So it could have been a contributing factor. Thank you.
Is this, was there a? Oh, I figured it was.
Remember my